is Kelly, and this is my second part of my 1790s gown series. For the gown, I was originally inspired by this book, Costumes and Styles. It's basically a book that has old fashion plates, but they're just recolored in kind of a weird way. I don't know how else to describe it. In this book, there's this beautiful red gown that I saw, and I was instantly captured by it. I was already doing a project at the time that's completely unrelated to this, which I'll post in a different video, but I saw this red dress and it was over. I had to make it. So I read the description and figured out which time period it was, and it's from 1791. And it had the most interesting description because in the image she has a red ribbon around her neck, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then in the description it says red ribbon around the neck a la guillotine. Excuse my French, I took Spanish. I thought that was so funny, and I had to find out more. So I did a little research online and a few different sources, which I'll name here, I'll put on screen somewhere. They basically said that it was in honor of victims of the guillotine. As you can imagine what that means per fashion. The red ribbon, yes. And I thought that was hysterical. And then I went on this whole escapade to learn more about fashion during the French Revolution. And basically what I found out was the fashion of the French Revolution changed drastically, and a lot of what people were wearing were based on political ties. The fashion of the French Revolution was very important because it distinguished your political standing. So a lot of people opted to wear the tricolors, which is the blue, the white, the red, and it was to symbolize your alliance with the revolution so you won't get tried for mutiny in the Reign of Terror and get your head cut off. So, very important. In this book, there's this whole chapter about the evolution of fashion during the French Revolution. It talks about the rising waistlines of the 1790s, which was the period of the French Revolution. And so basically my project with the round gown is to be inspired by the change in fashion during the French Revolution. For this project in particular, I mainly use 18th century dressmaking by American Duchess. This was immensely helpful to my journey because I didn't really know where to start with this, and they provide some information about what they did and like step-by-step guides to recreating the looks that they made. But the round gown that they made was a bit different than the round gown that I wanted to make that was in Costumes and Styles. So I had to make a few alterations and figure out what the construction of that was. Oh, I almost forgot. I made a new petticoat for this, which I used American Duchess's book for, and I learned about Regency petticoats because that was different than the earlier half of the 18th century. Because they had a higher waistline, they had to have a new way of suspending them, right? And so, here it is. Can you see it? Here it is. I'm really quite pleased with it. I decided to go for this bodice look because I thought it would be more in line with the 1790s and its transitional period, because I know a lot of the Regency ones are just on straps, and I was originally planning on doing that because it was easier, but I decided to go the harder route because that's what I do. And in their book they have very fabulous instructions on how to make a petticoat from the 1790s, and I basically just used their pattern and I just made it to fit my measurements, and then that's my process. So if you want to learn how to do that, just buy their book. Going back to the construction question of the round gown, the gown that I wanted to make was more of a chemise a la reine style. So I had to do a ton of research on that, which I didn't really have in any of the books that I have personally. So I had to look up a lot on Pinterest, as you do. And I found a few really good sources. I found some really interesting reconstructions done by some other people that I found very helpful for how the hell is it supposed to work, right? I also used Nancy Bradfield's book Costume in Detail for instructions. I used the white printed cotton ensemble. It's like a half robe, but it has this really helpful diagram that I used a lot while trying to figure out the lining and how it's supposed to come together in the front, and then you have the drawstrings that have the 2 layers, right? The challenge with this is that the silhouette of the original gown falls more at the natural waist, which is more the 1780s style, and I'm not going for that. So I found the original image of the dress and I edited it to make the, what is it, the second tier, to make the second ruffled tier shorter. So it would be the first one is large and then the second one is smaller than the first, because in the original image they are both the same size, and that will not work for the time period I'm going for. Now, in terms of historical accuracy, did anyone do this and did it exist, right? And I found a fashion plate which shows to me that in fact it did exist, because she seems to have the first layer that's larger than the second layer, right? It's got that 2-tiered look, which is actually really, really hard to find from the 1790s, at least in my research, because it was going out of style, and the chemise a la reine gown is associated with Marie Antoinette, which I said earlier you don't want to be associated with the royals. So in order to make this more appropriate for the Revolution, you would have to shorten the second tier to make it higher, to make the waistline higher, to match the silhouette that people were going for at the time, because they're trying to distance themselves from the royals and be more patriotic. I found a few other images that appears to me to have the second tier, right? There's this one where this girl is wearing this green outfit, and in this outfit she seems to be having a second or maybe even 3 layers of gathering on it. I can't tell if that's just the waist or if that's like a tier like I was going for, right, with the look. But I found another portrait that kind of has what appears to me as a second waistline, and this photograph is from 1754. So it's the right time period, and it's also from France. So I'm trusting that this is another example that I need, another piece of evidence to prove that this did exist in history. So I found this massive ass sheet. It's a fitted bed sheet, and this was kind of the motivation for me even doing this project in the first place. First, I started off by ripping apart the fitted part of the fitted sheet and ironing the sheet down because it's very, very wrinkled. Then I looked at American Duchess's book and I basically copied the inner lining that they provide. So I basically took the lining pattern from their book and then just made it with my measurements, and then I saw if it fit me or not. It didn't. So I took in the sides. And after I took in the sides, it fit me pretty well, although it did have a little bit of gapping under the arm. Oh, and my machine broke in the middle of this mess, right? My machine broke. I had to rip it apart with my bare hands and I fixed it because I can't take it anywhere because of quarantine. How fun, right? Okay, this project had multiple snags. It's had many problems. It's certainly not the most streamlined project I've ever done because I didn't really know what I was doing. But in the end, it turned out fabulous, so I'm not too mad about it. This is my second mistake. Well, I'm not going to be counting, but this is one of many mistakes that I made on this project. I sewed the lining and the fashion fabric, or the fitted sheets, together because I thought that was what I was supposed to do, but I sewed the... what is this called? I sewed the edges of the straps together, and then because of that, I couldn't turn it inside out. So I took my seam ripper and I ripped it apart. I did this many different times throughout this process because I did things in the wrong order. Don't be like me. Yeah, I just ended up felting it all down. It looks pretty nice, but I have no idea what I'm supposed to do with these stupid channels. I tried sewing one down because I sewed these down the same way and they turned out okay, but maybe it's just because they're smaller. And then this turned out pretty garbage. And these ones I didn't do anything with because I don't want to mess them up like the first one. So I'm just gonna wait, and if anyone in the comments has any idea, please let me know and I'll fix it later. Then I sewed the rest of the lining and the bed sheet together to make it, you know, clean and finish it up, you know, because there's a few spots that I had to rip apart or that weren't sewn together, so I just did them all by hand. I sewed them together. Now the sleeves I had a few drafts of because first one I made was too small, second one I made was too big, and then the third one I made was just right. So I made the sleeves according to what the American Duchess Guide says because I follow orders, no, because they're more knowledgeable than me in this area. Then I did this process of putting on the dress with all the undergarments underneath it, and then I took the sleeves and then I put them on, and then I adjusted where I thought they should line up in one place. And then I sewed them how American Duchess recommends, which I did under the armpit to like nearly the shoulder blade, this area, I don't know what this is called, and then to a little bit before it, and then I had some loose fabric, so I tucked the loose fabric in on itself and I sewed it down, and it created a bit more puckering than was probably acceptable back then. But you know, I'm sure someone once upon a time did this and didn't have any qualms about it because fabric's expensive and you have to use what you have, right? Even if you make a mistake, and that is historical.